At the edge of Alaska's Copper River Valley, under the shadow of the Wrangell Mountains, there lived a man named Elias Carver. Folks in the nearby town of Glenallen just called him Doc Ely. He wasn't a doctor in the white coat sense, more like a weathered healer of both men and beasts, with hands rough as bark and eyes like thunderclouds before a storm. Elias had spent the last 20 years alone in a timber cabin he'd built himself, where the snow whispered secrets and the silence held stories. People came to him when they had nowhere else to go. Injured trappers, lost hikers, even the occasional orphaned moose calf. He never turned anything away. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened on that freezing morning in late March. It was just before dawn, the kind of cold that burns your nostrils and stiffens your boots in minutes. Elias had stepped outside with a tin cup of coffee, steaming in his hand when he noticed something off. The birds weren't chirping. Not a single squirrel chattered from the trees. The whole forest felt like it had taken a breath and was holding it. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong, a low, guttural wail. Not quite animal, not quite human. It was coming from the tree line. At first he thought it was a trick of the wind, but then the brush shifted, branches cracked, and out of the shadows stepped a massive grizzly bear. His breath caught. This wasn't just any bear. Elias recognized her. Locals called her Ashpaw, a scarred-up matriarch known to fiercely protect her territory. Hunters avoided her. Even wolves kept their distance. She was a legend up here, untouchable, unstoppable. And yet, she was crying. Her wide brown eyes glistened. Her chest heaved, and in her massive jaws, dangling like a rag doll, was a tiny cub, limp, motionless, blood staining its golden fur. She walked forward step by trembling step until she was just 20 feet from Elias. And then, something impossible happened. Ashpaw lowered the cub gently to the ground and backed away. She whimpered, like she was begging. Elias didn't move for a full minute. His pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed run. But something stronger held him there. Something ancient. A knowing. He stepped forward. The cub's breathing was shallow, barely there. Its left flank was torn open, ribs visible. The kind of injury no wild animal could survive without help. But Elias had seen worse. He dropped to his knees in the snow and did something even he didn't fully understand. He spoke. "I'm gonna try," he murmured, not to the cub, but to her. "But I can't promise nothing." Ashpaw didn't move. She sat like a statue, watching. Elias wrapped the cub in his flannel jacket, pressing gently on the wound, and carried it into his cabin. The door creaked shut behind him. Outside, the bear didn't leave. She stood vigil. For 2 days. Inside, it was a battle. The cub went into shock 3 times. Elias stitched the wound with shaking fingers, using supplies meant for people. He spoon-fed it, boiled salmon broth, sang low lullabies from some long-lost memory, and barely slept. The fever came on the 3rd night. Elias burned through his entire stash of willow bark and pine extract, trying to keep it down. He whispered stories to the unconscious cub, his voice cracking, telling it about the stars, about rivers that run like silver, about a mother waiting outside who hadn't moved an inch. On the 5th day, just as the first rays of sun pierced the frost on the window, the cub opened one eye. Just one, but it blinked. Elias exhaled, long and slow. When he stepped outside, the cub tucked against his chest. Ashpaw rose, towering, silent. Her breath fogged the air in thick clouds. Elias knelt, unwrapped the cub, and gently placed it in the snow. The bear didn't rush. She sniffed her baby, licked the wound once. Then she turned and looked straight at Elias. What passed between them can't be written down. It wasn't language. It was something older, deeper, respect, gratitude, a bond forged not through fear, but through mercy. Then she nudged the cub, who, though wobbly, stood. They walked together back into the forest. Elias watched until the trees swallowed them whole. He didn't tell anyone, not for weeks. Then one evening, a park ranger named Dana Yarrow stopped by. She'd heard rumors of a strange sight. Ashpaw, the notoriously reclusive bear, spotted trailing fishers, but not attacking. Almost guiding them away from danger. Elias just nodded. said nothing. But the next spring, something happened that left even him speechless. Outside his cabin, in the exact same spot where Ashpaw had once stood, lay three things: a fresh salmon, a pile of wild blueberries, and a single golden feather. No bird in the region had feathers like that. He looked out toward the forest and caught a flicker of movement. Two bear cubs, healthy, playful, tumbled through the brush. Ashpaw watched from a distance, and for the briefest second, she locked eyes with him again. Then she was gone. Elias never tried to explain it. He didn't need to. Some stories don't ask to be understood. They just ask to be remembered. The months that followed were unusually quiet for Elias. Not silent, but peaceful, like the forest itself had shifted, as if a line had been drawn, and on one side stood the world of men, and on the other, something sacred, wild, and ancient. And Elias somehow now stood right in between. He kept to his routines, chopping firewood, mending fences, tending to wounded animals. But there was a new calm in him, a slowness to his movements, like he was listening more than acting, and the forest seemed to listen back. Sometimes when the wind moved just right, he thought he could hear soft grunts or the patting of paws near the tree line. Once he spotted one of the cubs, the one with a faint scar along its ribs, peering at him from behind a boulder before vanishing into the underbrush. Then one morning in late autumn, when the first frost had dusted the ground like powdered sugar, something caught his eye again. Footprints, large, deliberate, fresh, but they didn't lead toward his cabin. They led away. Curious, Elias followed them, past the creek, across the ridge, through a thicket of spruce that hadn't been disturbed in years. Then he saw it, a clearing, and in the center an odd pile of stones, stacked carefully, deliberately, not random, almost ceremonial. At the top sat a bundle, a fresh elk hide, a few polished stones, and resting among them, his flannel jacket, the one he'd wrapped the cub in. It was folded neatly. Elias didn't move for a long time. He didn't touch anything. He just stood there, heart thudding in his chest, understanding something that had no words. This was a gift, a return, an acknowledgement from a creature that lived by its own rules. He walked back to his cabin slower than he came, his boots crunching the frost, his breath white in the morning light. The next winter came hard and fast. Snow piled high. Temperatures dropped to lethal. Many in town assumed old Doc Elias had probably frozen in his sleep. But one day when a pilot flew over his part of the valley, they spotted something in the snow. Not smoke. Tracks, bear tracks, and boot prints, side by side, not overlapping, not chasing, together. The story of the mother bear and the man who healed her cub spread, but Elias never confirmed it, never denied it either. He just kept living his quiet life, deeper in tune with the land than ever before. And every spring, without fail, something would appear outside his cabin. A claw-marked salmon, a half-chewed deer bone, a carved piece of bark shaped like a paw print. Each time Elias would smile. No words, no noise. Just a nod to the wild and the wild nodding back. Because sometimes the line between man and beast blurs, not out of fear or force, but out of something rarer. Trust. And in the frozen corners of the world, that trust is worth more than gold. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss another unbelievable tale. Thanks for watching, and remember, some stories are too powerful to be fiction.